What's up, True Crime World? You're here with Luminal on the Wall, and I'm Bevy.
And I'm Becky. This case takes us back to 1965, where the Likens family is struggling to make ends meet. When parents Lester and Elizabeth get the opportunity to join a traveling circus and make some real money, they jump on the opportunity. They seek out accommodations for their children that they thought would be safe. Little did they know that they were handing them over to pure evil. This is the case of Sylvia Likens. In this case, we discuss sexual assault, abuse, and torture. Listeners' discretion is advised. All right, Bev. In 1949, Sylvia Likens, aka Cookie, was born on January 3rd. Her parents were Elizabeth and Lester Likens. She was the third of 5 children. Her 2 older siblings were named Diana and Daniel, and she also had 2 younger siblings, Jenny and Benny. Now, Jenny and Benny were not much younger than Sylvia, but she would often help take care of Jenny because when she was younger, she had gotten polio. She ended up having a limp leg as a result of that illness. Sylvia was a very giving child. She would take her babysitting money and use it on Jenny to take her skating so that she could be included with all the other kids despite her disability. The Likens kids grew up in the Midwest in Indianapolis, Indiana. Elizabeth and Lester were not well off. However, Lester worked many odd jobs to take care of his family. Lester and Elizabeth would at times travel for months with the carnival. They worked concession to make ends meet there. And that is exactly what they planned in the summer of 1965. Unfortunately, on July 3rd, 1965, Elizabeth, Sylvia's mother, had been arrested and jailed for shoplifting.
Oh, no.
Yes. Oh, no is right.
Jailed for shoplifting?
Yeah.
What was she shoplifting?
Oh, I have not a clue, but hopefully it was important.
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
Not that she would keep it if she was caught, but...
Taken away.
Yeah, you're like, you risk jail time, girl. So
And you got it.
Yeah.
So because of this, Lester was in charge of finding the accommodations for their children because they couldn't take them with them.
On the Carney tour?
Yeah.
Is Carney offensive? It's a good question, right?
That is a good question. Do they use it in American Horror Story?
You're barking up the wrong tree. I've never watched American Horror Story.
Well, sorry to all the carnies out there if it is. Please let us know.
As she proceeds to say it again, it's like, if it is, whoops, there's another one.
Already apologized.
Yeah. But I haven't. Sorry, carnies. No, I'm just kidding.
You started that. So in the summer of 1965, Lester arranged for Daniel and Benny to stay with their grandparents, and Sylvia and Jenny to stay at a neighbor's house. This neighbor was none other than Gertrude Baniszewski. She was renting a house on the corner of East New York and Denny. She herself had 7 kids of her own. Paula, who was 17, Stephanie, 15, John, 12, Marie, 11, Shirley, 10, and James, 8. These 6 oldest children all carried the last name Baniszewski, and that was from her first husband, John Baniszewski. Now, that relationship ended because John had been so abusive to her that they broke up. She then had a second marriage, and that lasted 3 months before divorcing.
Damn.
Guess why it ended?
Abuse?
Yes.
What the fuck?
So she is having like a series of bad relationships.
No doubt.
And then she met a man named Dennis Wright, who was the father of Gertrude's 7th child, Dennis. He is only 18 months old at the time when the Likens girls decide to come stay with them.
Okay. Wow, she's got a house full.
She does. Now, unfortunately, Gertie had been abandoned by Dennis Wright, so she was left all alone with those 7 children.
Oh, geez.
Can you imagine? That's quite the handful.
She was left by the only good husband she had?
Well, he probably wasn't that good.
If he left her. Touche, sister. Touche.
7 kids? Like, what a dick.
What a freaking dick, man. That would be freaking brutal. I mean,
yeah.
She did have 6 prior, so, I mean, but still, like, he left his own son, Dennis. Poor old Denny boy.
Just abandoned.
Yeah.
Oh, dear.
I was like, immediately thought, I'm going to start talking in an accent and, like, be like, poor old. And I was like, no, like,
Bang,
every
bang,
time.
bang. We know what happened last time.
Yeah.
It was interesting. So Sylvia, who was 16 and Jenny 15 at the time, they had actually met Paula and Stephanie Baniszewski a few months earlier in high school. And since they got along so well, that's why Lester arranged with Gertrude that he would pay her $20 a week so that the girls could stay with her. This would include their food, boarding, and general care.
Sounds like a decent deal, actually.
Yeah, right? Now, Gertrude promised that she would treat them just like her own. Now, when Lester drops the girls off, this is the very first time that he's actually meeting Gertrude. And unfortunately, he does a quick drop off and had only gone into the house as far as the living room. He didn't.
No.
I know, right? So make that look all nice and we're good. He did not check out the rest of the house. He didn't even see what accommodations she had, where the girls would be staying. If he had, that could have been a telltale sign of maybe what was to come.
Why?
Because, Bev, the house was disgusting. They said it wasn't even fit for a dog.
Oh my gosh.
On top of it, there wasn't even enough beds for the Baniszewski children, never mind Sylvia and Jenny.
So we're kind of looking at Gertrude probably accepting these kids maybe for a financial benefit.
I could only assume that's why, because,
why else would you be like, come into my home, you have no bed, but come live with me? That's just weird.
It is weird, isn't it?
Yeah.
Well, Bev, on top of that, they also did not even have a functioning stove. And at the time, there was no food in the house, let alone the dishes to eat it off of.
Oh my gosh. So they were in a dire circumstance.
Yeah.
And Lester has no idea.
No idea. He in fact, the day he's dropping them off, hands Gertrude a 20 in good faith. And all he expects is her to treat them like her own. And he said, use a firm hand on the girls if necessary. If they act out, keep them in line.
He's basically saying, I don't want you to be bothered if they're acting out. Feel free to kind of put them in their place.
Mm-hmm.
But it's, also kind of sad because he's saying, treat my kids as you would your own. And she's like, yeah, well, I don't even have beds or food for mine. So sure.
Not a problem. Shouldn't be too hard, right?
Yeah. Terrible.
So for the first few weeks, things went pretty well. However, Gertrude's daughter, Paula, the oldest, ended up not getting along with Sylvia. And it created a really big tension within the household. On top of that, the money that Jenny and Sylvia's parents were supposed to have sent Gertrude didn't show up on time. Now, this pissed Gertrude off. And in a rage, she spat at the girls and took Jenny and Sylvia upstairs, got them to pull their pants and underwear down, and she would hit them with a belt or paddle.
Oh my gosh. Now, this is in the 60s, and although this in our day and age seems extreme, I do feel this type of punishment for bad behavior or anger was more common. Not necessarily acceptable, but more common.
Yeah.
But it's not like these girls did anything wrong. So she's just being abusive as fuck.
Right out the gate pretty much. When she was hitting them, people had commented later on in the court case that she was remembered saying, well, I took care of you two bitches for a week for nothing. Now, I think she was a little quick to anger.
Yeah.
Because the money, I kid you not, showed up the next day.
Oh my gosh. So she beats these girls and traumatizes the crap out of them for literally nothing.
Yeah, for absolutely no reason.
And refers to them as bitches. Terrible.
They're teen girls.
Oh my gosh.
She's a foul-mouthed woman, that's for darn sure, Bev.
You know what's also kind of sad? Is the girls wouldn't have any way of contacting their parents, right? Cell phones weren't a fucking thing in this year.
Yeah. What are you going to write a letter? Maybe write a letter.
Maybe, but
to a traveling.
If they're to a traveling carnivalarian. No, just sorry.
What? Carnivalarian?
I'm trying not to say carny because I just don't know if it's offensive. So I'm going to come up with unique ways to
Aren't carnies the people?
The ones that work at the carnivals.
Yeah, they would be the carnies.
Yeah. So I'm referring to them as carnivalians now.
Oh,
Becky, how did you not get that?
I don't know. I was like, that's a unique word. Bev's an idiot.
Meanwhile,
I'm not getting what you're putting down right over my head.
Now who's the idiot? I'm just kidding. I had to say that, but it was kind of rude.
It was rude.
Are you doing okay?
No.
You have to suffer my annoying shit all the time?
That's like little sister syndrome right there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So, sadly, this was just the beginning of what was to come, Bev. Now, by mid-August, Gertrude found almost any reason to treat Sylvia and Jenny horribly. Gertrude would often withhold food from both girls. She was just wanting to starve them. So one night, all the children in the household had attended a church supper. Paula told on Sylvia and Jenny because they had apparently eaten too much food at this dinner. Gertrude took them upstairs and had beaten them approximately 15 times on the back with a paddle. Now, it's said at the time Gertrude was a really frail woman and she had virtually no strength at all. She was underweight, and so in order to accommodate the abuse that she wished to impose on these children, she would actually use weapons. She would use paddles, belts, all for corporal punishment. She also would get great joy out of humiliating Sylvia. One instance, she said, "You're certainly getting big in the stomach," insinuating that she was pregnant.
With all that food she's fucking eating, right?
Yeah, just her food, baby.
Oh, that's so terrible.
I know, like, and in front of all the other kids, she wasn't, like, quiet about it or, like, concerned. It was, like, pure humiliation.
And sorry, at this time, Sylvia was
16.
Which is a terrible time. Like, every girl knows, like, you're fragile. Your mental state, like, it's a time where your body's changing.
Yeah, and you don't need to be poked fun of about
or
your weight.
Humiliated in front of people.
Exactly.
So bad.
Now, apparently the reason why Gertrude did this or said that was because a couple days earlier, Sylvia had told her that she had a boyfriend in Long Beach. And when she was there last, she had actually laid under the sheets with him. A little risque in the 1960s for a girl, you know?
Right.
And that's why she was insinuating that she was pregnant.
Okay.
Just being a bit of a tramp.
Oh, God.
But she wasn't.
Right, of course. But she's using this as like a way to
humiliate her.
Terrible. I hate people who take things that you tell them and use it against you. Unless it's me doing it to you. And in that case, it's epic and awesome, right? Awesome.
I can appreciate the
hilarity of it.
The humor. Yes.
But it still stings a bit?
Just a bit.
Perfect.
Speaking of stinging,
what?
I thought I got stung by something at the dog park, but I got shocked by a dog. Like shocked? I was rubbing this cute little doodle, and it was like electrocuting my hands.
Oh, and you thought you were getting stung?
I thought I got like a sliver or something, like, and I was like, ah! Pulled my hand away, but the dog was like shocking me. Like, I don't know if he was staticky, but none of the other dogs were doing it, so I assume it was him, not me. But it caught me off guard, and I thought something like stung me because it was so sharp and painful.
Dang.
And I thought after, I'm like, did that dog have a shock collar on?
That's what I was thinking when you started talking about that.
Because it was really painful. Like I actually thought a twig went right in my fingertip.
Weird.
I almost died, actually. I was like, ugh.
Did you hear that from the lips of Becky? She almost died from a tiny electrocuted, like, shock. Almost died.
I did. Mm-hmm. It was concerning.
Concerning, that's a good word for it.
Very. It was November. There shouldn't be any stingables out there. Like, there's no bees,
that's fair.
No mosquitoes.
Totally.
Like, what stabbed me?
What stabbed me? It was shocking.
You know, it's like the Halloween treats. Why is there a needle in this apple or candy? Why is there something stabbing me from this fluffy, cute dog?
No, it's a fair point. It was concerning. Good.
Very concerning that I might lose my life.
Oh, fuck off. You hyperbole bitch.
What you gonna do about it?
Literally nothing. Use it against you later.
Yeah, I don't know how, but you will think of something because you're witty like that.
I am witty.
And hurtful. Just kidding. I can take a joke. So Gertrude had asthma. I kid you not, my next line is that Gertrude has asthma.
Oh, no, I figured as
Okay,
much.
I'm like, I'm just going to have to say it
The
again.
timing was hilarious, Becky. Yes.
Would you say good comedic timing?
Yes, sister.
Yes, that's for Becky.
All right. So now that we've fucked around for like 10 minutes
12.
here.
Yeah. Let's get into it.
Yes.
Better. Now, on top of Gertrude just being a weak woman, she also had asthma. And at times, because of this, she felt far too weak and apparently breathless to discipline the girls, according to her, properly. So she would actually get her 17-year-old daughter, Paula, to help her. And then eventually got other children to join in as well.
No way.
Yeah. Yeah, way.
What a bitch.
That's the worst. Like, you can't even do it yourself. Not that it should happen, but don't make other people do your fucking dirty work.
Yeah, exactly. Especially like in the dynamic, right? These two girls are like by themselves in this house with like people they don't know very well. And then now it's like not just the evil mother being evil, it's literally everyone against them. That would just be scary and terrifying and horrible.
Oh, for sure. You have no one to really turn to, right?
Yeah.
Well, Bev, it eventually got to a point where it didn't really matter how well behaved the girls were. They would suffer abuse for any little thing. As an example, they would exchange pop bottles that they found for change at the local grocery store. And when they did that, they just wanted to buy candy or little treats for themselves.
Yeah.
But Gertrude always thought that they were lying and had stolen the treats. And for this, she would actually take matches and burn their fingers.
Oh my God. Like hot hands.
Yeah.
Like literally.
I didn't think about that, but that makes sense.
Like her type of punishment.
Analogy.
Makes why she chose that type of punishment for that quote unquote crime.
Yeah. That does. Wow. You are bright. You are on it today, Bev.
Shall I say
No.
witty?
Witty? Am I witty?
I have a little.
You. Am I witty? Do I dare say I'm witty today? Me witty.
Okay, Yoda, calm down.
Witty am I? Yes, Bevy, you're so witty.
Oh my God. That was good.
I love sick Bevy when we're recording. This is fun.
This is cool.
Yeah.
Fun. So fun.
Oh, dear. So eventually, Gertrude kind of directed her rage and anger towards Sylvia. It said that Gertrude and her oldest daughter, Paula, were a little jealous of her beauty. Now, the abuse became so often, and they didn't try to hide it. They would knock Sylvia right out of her chair and tell her she wasn't fit to sit in a chair. Now, one time, they were having a family dinner, and a neighborhood boy was over, Randy Gordon Lepper. He helped Paula and Gertrude force-feed Sylvia a hot dog with a ridiculous amount of condiments and spices on it. They kind of rammed it in there and forced her until she actually ended up puking it up. And then they forced her to eat her own vomit.
No, they didn't.
Yes, they did, Bev.
That upsets me.
Like, it's totally humiliating. It's probably a little painful. And disgusting.
It's disgusting. Eating your own vomit? How disgusting that they would do that to her. I think that's so wrong. I think it's so wrong. That is so fucking sad. And it's just like every single person Gertrude just brings into the torture and the humiliation and the abuse. Like, this is now a neighborhood boy, right?
Yeah, it's like they bring them in, and because of what they're doing, they kind of set like a precedence. Like, it's okay to do this in this household.
Yeah,
right?
This person's scum. We can do what we want.
I know.
Terrible. Holy shit.
What's really crazy about this whole situation, Bev, is that not only was this family like perpetuating the abuse, but for some reason, Sylvia became a victim and someone to just beat up on by other children and youth in the neighborhood. Someone had actually told Gertrude's daughter, Stephanie, that Sylvia had started a rumor about Stephanie and Paula being prostitutes. So obviously, Stephanie was completely enraged and confronted Sylvia. Sylvia had actually admitted to creating that story and apologized, but still, Stephanie punched her right in the face. When Stephanie's boyfriend, Coy Hubbard, heard about this rumor, he actually brutally attacked Sylvia as well. He stopped her and banged her head against the wall, and he kind of slammed her onto the floor. And as if Sylvia hadn't suffered enough by Stephanie and her boyfriend, when Gertrude found out, she used a thick paddle to beat her as well.
My God.
Like, what a foul family.
What a fucking foul family. I can't even handle that. That's disgusting.
I know, like this poor girl. And later, like at the end of the story in the court hearings, they actually talk about how Sylvia never actually started that rumor.
Oh my God.
But I think she might have been so fearful that she just was like, I'm sorry, you know, trying to like smooth things over.
Thought that if she just apologized immediately, that she wouldn't.
Over.
Yeah, that it would just like fizzle and they wouldn't beat her. But no, they did the exact opposite. Oh,
based on what I've like researched about this, I feel it didn't matter what she was going to say. She could have been like, fuck you, I didn't fucking do it. And she would have got her ass beat. She could have apologized like she did, cried, all that, still got beat up.
No kidding.
Like
she could do
really
no
didn't
right.
matter. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
Stop trying to make fetch happen here, bud.
Yeah.
Now, as we said, the family kind of set the precedence on how Sylvia should be treated. However, as time went on, they actually ended up having a really open door policy on who could come in and beat Sylvia and do kind of whatever they wanted. Now, Hubbard, who again is Stephanie's boyfriend, had brought several of his classmates over to Gertrude's house, and they would spend that time physically, verbally abusing Sylvia. And they took the lead from Gertrude, and they all seemed to collaborate and abuse Sylvia at their home. Gertrude would encourage the kids to beat Sylvia, and even at some points they would use Sylvia as their practice for their judo skills.
My goodness gracious.
Yeah, she was literally a punching bag for these kids, is how they were treating her.
What kids, like, think of this as a hobby and think that this is just okay? Like, how does this one family know all these shitty fucking people? Again, I think I mentioned it on a previous podcast, but it's like, it reminds me of that group think mentality, right? Mm-hmm. Where no one is willing to go against the grain because they're afraid of like sounding stupid or, you know, receiving criticism or whatever. It just reminds me of that. It's like they're all thinking, okay, this person beats her, so even though we might think that's wrong, we're all just going to kind of do it anyways.
Yeah, where some of these kids might have never have done that on their own accord.
They're doing it now.
Exactly.
I know. That makes me so sad for Sylvia. I can't even believe that.
Because also, like, you, at that point, you know, there is not a single person that you can turn to. There's not a glimmer. There's not even a glimmer of hope that she will find someone.
Right.
So as we can assume, the abuse continued. However, it started to advance to a much more concerning type of abuse. These kids and Gertrude started to cut her skin. They would burn her with cigarettes. And it was noted that Sylvia had been injured more than 100 times, including her private parts. And then on top of it, all these people wanted to humiliate her. She was forced to take all her clothes off in the family living room and was forced to masturbate with a glass Pepsi bottle with everyone around.
What the fuck?
Mm-hmm.
What mother would ever allow this to happen to a 16-year-old girl? That was my, also when you were talking about how the boyfriend would bring all of his friends in and they would beat her. Mm-hmm. All I kept thinking was the risk of bringing in men that are not known to the family with a young woman, even though it's not her family, still unknown males being welcomed into a home and having basically a free-for-all on this young woman. My mind immediately went to the risk of sexual abuse. Now, what's happening? Sexual abuse. That's disgusting.
I know. And poor girl, she, like, that's supposed to be like a really intimate moment for yourself and your partner or whoever.
And at 16, it's not even like you're comfortable with
what's going on with your body and how it works like that, right?
no, well, yes, but like just in terms of masturbation, like that is kind of something that is embarrassing when you're 16, you know, for a lot of women. Like I remember when I was 16 and people would be like, "Oh, you masturbate," you know, trying. It's almost like you're making fun of someone for masturbating. So it's like this embarrassing thing that you would never want to tell someone, even if you did.
Yeah.
And so being forced to do that in front of people, like, man.
Humiliating is right.
Yeah.
Now, Bev, what's really sad about this whole humiliating event is that Gertrude's reason for doing this was apparently to prove to Jenny, Sylvia's younger sister, what kind of girl she was, what kind of tramp. So this is kind of a common theme with Gertrude.
Going back to her using
or spending time under the blanket with the boy.
Yeah, and like using her own words and like her confiding in Gertrude against her.
I know. What a horrible woman, right?
Fuck. I wonder if Gertrude actually did think that was trampy.
I mean, it's hard to say like where her mental state was at because like look at everything else and it's like, why are you so hung up on this?
Yeah, it's just bogus.
It is bogus, Bev. Now, on top of abuse and all this shit that was going on, Gertrude actually kept Sylvia home from school. And the thing that kind of put Gertrude over the edge was apparently Sylvia had stolen a gym suit from the school, but only because Gertrude refused to purchase the clothing for her.
And she needed it for gym class.
Exactly. And like her parents were still sending money, although maybe a day late. They were still religious in paying her.
Yeah, and it was accommodation she was supposed to have taken care of for her.
Exactly.
Oh my God. So now her only means of like escape from the situation, going to school, is taken away from her. So now she's just in an abusive place 24/7.
Exactly. Now, as we know, Gertrude doesn't like stealing, and this sent her into a blind rage. And because of it, she whipped Sylvia with a 3-inch wide police belt. She also proceeded to kick her multiple times in the genitals. In a very shocking turn, though, Stephanie, one of Gertrude's daughters, actually came to Sylvia's defense and said she didn't do anything. Unfortunately, this made zero impact on Gertrude, and she continued to burn Sylvia's fingertips with matches and proceeded to whip her again.
I feel so terribly bad for Sylvia right now. So her own daughter is probably realizing, like, this is insane.
Yeah.
Like,
she needed gym clothes, Mom.
what the fuck?
Or she didn't do anything wrong. Like,
yeah.
Come on. Now, as we know, Sylvia's been the focal point of the abuse. But just a few days after she stole the gym clothing, Jenny actually stole a single tennis shoe from school. She needed it to wear on her strong foot. And so for the same reason, and with the same fate as Sylvia, Jenny was hit with the exact same police belt. Now at this point, you might be wondering, weren't these poor girls able to let their parents know?
Yeah.
Like, why didn't they talk to anyone? They were going to school for the most part. They could have written a letter. Like, why didn't they?
Yeah.
They were just so fearful of any ramifications from Gertrude. You know, her parents were far away. It's not like they could just get there in like a half an hour or an hour. It would be days.
Totally.
Who knows where they were, right?
So they just feel so helpless.
Yeah, they were so scared. So they wouldn't even dare telling a single soul. In kind of a shocking turn, their parents actually came back home to visit them on October 5th. And even when they were there, right in front of them, they still couldn't tell them what was going on. It is said that Gertrude kind of used some intimidation factors, and she was always in their presence. So she kept a very close eye because she knew they were going to be gone soon, and the girls knew that as well. So they were so scared.
Oh, I hate that. I hate that so much. But you hear it often in like abduction cases where the person, the abductor, takes the abductee out in public.
Yes.
Right? Keeps them alive and then kind of takes them out in public. And the person who was abducted doesn't say anything to any random passerby because, again, they're fearful and afraid. right? So I understand like why they didn't say it. I'm just sad that they didn't.
Yeah, they
Like,
were so
damn,
intimidated by
they're
that
such
witch
a-
of a woman.
By that witch.
Frickin' witch. That they couldn't even tell them. Like, that must have. Could you imagine how horrible and helpless you would feel knowing that you can't say anything, your parents are about to leave, and you know what's to come?
Yeah. Devastating.
The worst feeling in the world, I could imagine.
Yeah.
So once their parents did leave, Gertrude would taunt them about their current situation. She's quoted saying, "What are you going to do now, Sylvia? Now they're gone."
Ew. I hate her. I hate her.
Like, what's the point? Like, there's no point. Only your personal, enjoyment?
Yeah, you're just a big fat bully biatch.
Yeah. That
I
is the
hate
truth.
that. I feel so sad. Doesn't Gertrude think, one day her parents are going to come back for good and they're going to find out about everything because I won't have these children in my grasp anymore. Like, is she not thinking about that?
You know, I would probably guess she's not thinking of
Yeah,
that.
she doesn't give a shit.
Yeah, she's like, I don't give a fuck. I don't give a fuck. I'm going to do what I want because I'm bad. I'm a bad person. Now, on top of having to not say anything to their parents, they actually at one point, the two girls, had seen their older sister Diana in a park. And you know what, Bev? They actually did confide in her about the abuse.
Oh my God.
However,
what did Diana do?
Well, Bev, Diana thought that they were just unhappy and were maybe exaggerating these claims.
Oh, God.
And keep in mind, Diana, she's only like 18, 17, 18. She's young still. Like, that's heavy. That's a lot to take in.
Yeah, she probably thinks her silly little sisters are just being like,
they just want their mom and dad home.
Yeah.
You know,
no, I don't blame her for like not believing it. I don't blame Diana for that.
No, it's just too bad, right?
It's just, oh God, nothing's going right for these girls.
Like, literally nothing is going right.
Yeah.
Now, on one other occasion, they ran into their sister again. And they were in the presence of 11-year-old Marie, so one of Gertrude's daughters. Diana had given them a sandwich because they were hungry. And when they got home, Marie told Gertrude what had happened. And she accused Sylvia of engaging in gluttony.
Oh my God. Oh my goodness gracious, Lord Almighty. I just feel so much anger towards Gertrude right now.
I know. There's not that any abuse has any reasoning, but like, there's literally no reason to be doing this.
No, she's making shit up. Like, the whole like, okay, you're a tramp. You're not. You're having gluttony for wanting a sandwich. Like,
because I'm starving you.
Yeah, I don't like it. I hate it. I hate it so much.
I know, it's actually really hard to hear because you're like, number one, you know, there's people out there that go through this. And I couldn't imagine living that life, having to deal with any of that.
No, the poor girl.
Mm-hmm. So then, because of this gluttony accusation, Gertrude and Paula choked and bludgeoned Sylvia. They then put her in a scalding hot bath in order to cleanse her.
What the fuck?
I know. Like, what?
The outrage.
I know.
No, but seriously. They choked her too? What the fuck?
Yeah, choked and bludgeoned. And then once she was in the bath, Gertrude grabbed Sylvia's hair and banged her head against the bathtub to wake her up whenever she would kind of faint or black out. Now, it is a stroke of luck. A father of one of the neighborhood boys named Michael Monroe actually phoned the high school where the girls had been attending and reported that a girl with open sores all over her entire body was living at the Baniszewski's residence. Now, at that point, Sylvia had not been at school for several days, and so a school nurse actually went to investigate these claims. However, Gertrude lied and said that Sylvia had run away from her home and that she had no idea where she was. She also insisted to the nurse that her open sores were due to Sylvia's refusal to have proper hygiene, and that Sylvia was actually a really bad influence on her own children, as well as her sister. Apparently, the nurse found that as a sufficient reason to go back to school and not investigate this situation any further. The Baniszewskis had a neighbor named Raymond and Phyllis Vermillion, And the couple initially thought Gertrude was an amazing mother and that she was perfect to help take care of those girls. However, on 2 different occasions, they had gone over to their house. The first time, they had witnessed Paula physically abusing Sylvia. And both times they had gone over, Sylvia had black eyes. It's said that Paula and Gertrude quite openly bragged about the abuse and the mistreatment of Sylvia and Jenny.
So what did these neighbors think of that? They couldn't still cling to the belief that Gertrude is like this good mother and good person to care for these girls. Like, no way.
Yeah, I honestly don't know exactly what they thought, but they were just witnesses that they saw something
going on.
Yeah. To what level, I'm sure they had no idea.
I mean, the girl had 2 black eyes. Bullshit. I call fucking bullshit. But maybe they just thought it.
Like, kids will be kids. It was Paula.
I can't. No, that's crap. That's crap. Maybe that came out later that they had witnessed it. But how could you possibly think that Gertrude would be good for these girls when you see accounts of abuse and confessions of abuse? Bullshit.
Yeah, I know. It's kind of negligent, right? So the second time the couple went over, they noticed Sylvia seemed to be pretty docile and they said somewhat like zombified in nature.
Because she was being abused.
Well, exactly,
God.
Right? She was just
not getting
forming
fed.
into just a shell of herself.
Oh.
Now, because they had the first time they had seen Sylvia, now the second time, they thought that, oh, she's just, it's not as concerning. So they never actually reported anything.
Because she seemed docile.
Yeah. And things seemed a little calmer. So without having all the information, I could maybe see how they didn't want to involve themselves. Or maybe it was just a tiff between kids. I don't know. But it is so sad that they could have done something for this girl.
Yeah. Oh my God. Like, back to the point. Just nothing's going fucking right. So many people have tried. So many people have witnessed. So many people have seen. People have been told. And it's just like, no. It continues. It continues.
And people keep turning a blind eye.
Oh.
Or just not doing their due diligence in investigating things, right? So around that same time, Diana, who remembers the older sister, actually discovered where her sisters were and what house they were at. So I'm not sure if she did this just to go say hi and see them, or if she just had that lingering,
feeling.
Maybe something is up. I don't know. So she actually went over to check on them, and she had talked to her parents, and they had given her permission to go and see them. But Gertrude, being the terrible woman she is, would not let Diana in and forced her to leave her property. So after only 2 months of being at Gertrude's house, Sylvia had suffered such tremendous abuse, and she ultimately became incontinent. She had been denied access to the bathroom, and what is terrible about this, it was due to her incontinence.
I thought I knew what incontinence means, and maybe I don't now.
What do you think it means?
Basically zombified, kind of just who cares? Almost like that 1,000-yard stare, though. You know what I mean? Just kind of hopeless. That's what I thought it meant.
Oh, you are really wrong. Incontinence means you can't really control your bathroom.
Oh my God, no.
Yeah, there can be lots of issues with it, but it's a little unpredictable.
Did you know that when your body's under stress, it can cause incontinence too? And cause you to have a lack of control with your bladder?
I didn't really know that, but we've all heard of circumstances where people get scared and obviously stressed and they just piss themselves or shit themselves, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Well, I'm sure that 100% contributed to Sylvia's incontinence, but it was also predominantly from injury sustained to her abdomen and genital area.
Oh my God, from the abuse that she suffered from those boys or Gertrude.
Exactly. And then in order to punish her, they would not allow her to use the washroom when she needed.
So it just made it worse.
And we're back to the humiliation factor.
No kidding.
You shit yourself.
We caused you to not be able to use the bathroom properly, but we're going to punish you as a result of what we did to you. Fuck.
Exactly. They're treating her like she's just intentionally pissing and shitting herself. That's how it comes across to me. Yeah, and it's totally just the worst. I couldn't imagine that feeling she has. Just oh, fuck, it's happening again. Now what? Now what? You know? So Bev, just days after the Likens parents had left, Gertrude decided to put Sylvia in the basement. She tied her up where she was mostly kept naked. She wasn't fed, and she wasn't given any water. And she wasn't just tied up so she couldn't escape either. She was actually tied to the railing of the basement, and her feet were barely touching the ground, so somewhat suspended.
What the fucking hell?
Mm-hmm. What's ultra sick about this is Gertrude actually would charge neighborhood kids 5 cents a piece to see the display and abuse. Not only would she have them pay to watch, but she would often ask for assistance
in abusing her.
Yeah.
I am sickened by this.
Oh, yeah, she's disgusting human.
And it goes back to that whole thing where it's like she is motivated by the money. That's why she took them in, even though she really didn't have accommodations for her. You know, she started abusing her because the money was late. At least that was her fucking reason. And now she's using her to make money. I can't fucking handle it.
I actually never thought of that cycle, but goddamn. Now, she would get these neighborhood kids to help gag Sylvia, and then they would place her in the hottest bath, and then whoever she chose would help rub salt in all of her Sylvia's wounds. She had her 12-year-old son, John Jr., take his 1-year-old sibling's diaper and then put that in her mouth. So all the poop, the pee, he would rub it in her face and her mouth, and then would pour water down her throat, and that would be her food for the day.
I'm speechless.
I know, I don't even know really what to say except the facts here, because it's unimaginable foul behavior and it almost doesn't seem real. And the only way I know it's real is because of the information online, and it's the worst.
I don't think I'll ever be able to say add salt to the wound ever again.
Or eat shit, motherfucker. On top of it, Bev, they would taunt her with real food. They would sit in front of her and then bring it to her face and take it away just to torment her. Now, eventually, after being in the basement for quite a bit of time, Gertrude said she would allow Sylvia to come up and sleep upstairs. However, her one condition that she had to allow this to happen, Sylvia was not allowed to wet herself. And as we know,
she was incontinent.
That is a big ask and completely unreasonable. So before Sylvia fell asleep, she secretly asked her sister to get her a glass of water because she was dehydrated as well. And so you can imagine having that glass of water and being dehydrated, incontinent. You can imagine she wets herself that night. The next morning, Gertrude found out that Sylvia had wet herself. And for Sylvia's punishment, Gertrude forced her to put an empty glass bottle of Coca-Cola into her vagina in front of Gertrude and her children. And then she was sent back to the basement.
I'm disgusted. I really feel some rage inside of me because there's just so many things wrong with the situation. Number one, what she's fucking doing to Sylvia. Wrong. Mm-hmm. Terrible. Secondly, why the fuck would she want her children to see somebody put something up their vagina? They're all underage. They're all minors. What the fuck?
Yeah, and that goes with almost every act that's been done to Sylvia. Why would you want your children to do and see a single thing that you've done?
And how could you not have empathy for this girl that you're imposing all this hatred and rage onto and abuse onto? How could you not see that and be like, that's someone's kid? I don't do that to my kids. Why would I ever want to do it to the parents that are out of town's kids? What the fuck? What the fuck?
Yeah, you took the words right out of my mouth. It's just horrendous. So this story, I can't say it gets any better. In fact, it gets astronomically worse. Now, I think this is a good time to end it here because Bev is outraged. She is emotional. And to be quite honest, we need to take a beat. So join us next week for the conclusion of this story. And thanks for listening, Bev.
Thanks for sharing.